Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is December 11th, and I forgot what categories. Business and social, as it usually is. But
we're back to the way things ought to be, the way the good Lord intended it. And here is a headline that is not surprising because of the crippling and never-ending crush of inflation. This should happen every year.
Cyber Monday was the biggest U.S. online shopping day ever.
This surprises me that people were shopping at all, but
They are.
I guess, yeah. I didn't order anything for Cyber Monday or Black Friday.
I did order Black Friday stuff. I was part of the problem. There's some good deals. And here, I know a lot of you were worried about this, and you were thinking,
Him and Elon. Yeah.
God, what is this guy's holiday going to be like? Is he going to make it? Is he going to be sleeping in his car? Well, good news.
Intel's ex-CEO Pat Gelsinger set to net $10 million in severance pay. I wouldn't call this a golden parachute. This is more like a golden handshake.
Do you think? Do you think after seeing some other stories this week, he's like, "Whoo, got out of the game just in time"?
I don't think that his life choices, being CEO, are quite so. He's fine.
He would be pretty far down on the list.
I had a daydream yesterday that some activist investors, because Intel's stock price is so depressed, that a bunch of activist investors came in and took over the company, fired the board, and reinstated Pat. Because I really do think that he's probably the best fit for fixing everything. And they clearly had no idea what they were doing when they got rid of him.
Well, the board...
They're trying to make everybody feel better.
They don't... If there is a plan for post-Pat, they're not telling us.
The headline is, Intel co-CEO David Zisner says that the core strategy remains intact. Intel will continue to be a products and foundry company, which makes it make even less sense for why they would get rid of Pat.
Do you think marketing is like talking to them like, we need to give the public like some kind of reassurance? And they're like, just tell them we're going to keep doing what we do.
We need to get rid of our CEO so that we continue doing the same core strategy.
But maybe they have something to be excited about, as this doesn't seem to be completely destroyed so far in the reviews and everything.
Intel Arc B580 and B570 debut. Battlemage graphics cards arrive soon. So, as always, wait for independent benchmarks. But this thing's looking pretty hot at $250. And by hot, I mean cool. And by cool, I mean that's a pretty good deal for $250.
It's definitely low range, but... people are poor right now. That's probably going to be a popular choice. And we have someone who might be, a little higher on the list after this has happened.
NZXT CEO admits we messed up, but stopped short of apologizing after scathing Gamers Nexus exposé.
To be clear, we don't have a list. We're just talking about a hypothetical list.
Right. Somebody had a list.
Somebody did, yeah.
TechSpot has the article. Gamers Nexus broke the news. They sort of looked at... You can basically buy now, pay over time your computer on NZXT's website. But when you dig into the fine print of it, you're not actually buying anything. You're renting it, because buying it at those interest rates would literally be illegal. And so when called out on it, the NZXT CEO's like, So I don't know. I think we'll check back in 6 months or a year and see if any real change has occurred. But good Lord, we need to teach financial literacy, because the products like that would be successful is disturbing.
Rent to own exists as a business.
Rent-A-Center would be more than yeah. It is not only is Rent-A-Center cheaper, it is like a third of the price as compared with this. And it's not even rent to own. It literally can't be rent to own, because it would be illegal for it to be rent to own. It's just renting.
Yeah, it's almost always a bad idea. And if you'll recall, very recently, Jensen from NVIDIA had some very glowing things to say about Elon Musk, about how he was a master engineer because of this. Of course, another way of saying that is he's a really good customer, and we want him to come back. And guess what? He did come back in a big way.
Musk's XAI plans a massive expansion of AI supercomputer in Memphis.
Is that one of his children, or?
No, he would never spend that much time with his children. So that was 100,000 GPUs. That's what they were so impressed by. It's going to 1 million.
I mean, that seems kind of hyperbolic, right?
I think it's going to happen.
I mean, 1 million GPUs in one cluster. I mean, they would have to be way low power, or Elon's going to need his own nuclear reactor.
Well, every tech bro is going to have his own nuclear reactor soon, right? I mean, that's sort of like, it's like owning a football team in the 90s.
Everyone does that.
Yeah. It's just a rite of passage.
It is actually kind of funny. If Steve Ballmer were still at Microsoft, we could say that Steve Ballmer is going to own 3 Mile Island, because that's not very far off from reality.
Well, we have warned in the past that you need to stay away from the low-priced TVs, not because they're poorly made, although sometimes they are, but because the reason they're cheap is because the TV is not the product. In fact, you are. And Walmart is drawing a line under that statement and putting a little exclamation point at the end.
Walmart buys Vizio to use its TVs as a new way to blast you with ads. $2.3 billion. I'm just excited that we have more publications that have been saying, or that are now saying what we've been saying for years, which is,
do I need to be advertised to so aggressively all the time?
yeah, like Walmart thinks this is a great deal because they can make so much money from this by giving you ads.
Also poetic, this happened right after Black Friday because so many people got that TV and they were like, wow, what a deal. Now maybe you can educate them.
And then make them feel bad about their purchase.
I'm not really sure how, but one of the LG TVs updated its firmware, and I took away its network and Wi-Fi, which means that even after you delete the Wi-Fi password because somebody accidentally put it in, it must remember that somewhere, and it's like, oh, let me just hop on and update my firmware, because now the new firmware is worse.
Well, I imagine this device also does that, and a litany of other things that you don't want it to do. What it seems to struggle with are the things that you do want it to do.
Tesla Cybertruck immediately dies in the Canadian winter. Owner bricks the truck trying to use the defroster. It says, in love to Heartbroken on the same day.
This was the $168,000 Cyber Beast. He got to drive it for 2 hours.
They're going to fix it, right? And it's going to be better than new. It's going to be amazing, right?
It can handle the Canadian winter.
Right?
I don't think anybody tested it in extreme temperatures like that. And here is a story that seems terrifying considering what we've had happen recently, but this one might be a little bit more benign. Still a great reminder of how fragile the whole thing is.
2 internet cables connecting Sweden and Finland suffered damage, one caused by construction and the other is still under investigation. Unlike the last time this happened, this wasn't the same source damaging 2 cables, at least. We know that. But it does put, as the article said, it's everybody's on their toes. So there was an immediate investigation, which is great.
How quick does your heart sink if you're the construction worker who cut that first cable?
I mean, he didn't know right away.
Yeah.
He found out later and was like, oh.
Oh, that was me.
They probably got a phone call and it was like, hey, who was out here running the, this machine? And it's like, oh, I did that. That's going to be expensive.
I'm not going to have a job.
And here is another hopeful sign to me that soon we can test for the inner monologue.
Researchers use e-tattoos on scalps to monitor brain activity. Painless electronic ink patterns replace cumbersome electrodes.
Does this only work if you're bald?
That's fine, because anybody who joins the church in the inner monologue has to shave their head like me. Yeah. So these are like henna tattoos, which they say you do have to like sit perfectly still for hours while it painstakingly prints them on your head.
That's true, henna as well.
But then you just wipe it off. And they can read your thoughts. I'm sure that won't be used against us. How long until AI is being trained just directly on heads?
Probably sooner than we would like. Probably sooner than we're comfortable with.
Hey, you got some coma victims over there?
Shave their heads.
Let's find out which ones are actually awake. And then you get one of them hooked up and it's just screaming.
And this week, maybe, you said the theme was no backdoors, but maybe the theme of this week is how far do you have to push people before something breaks? Because
that might be a better theme.
We saw a little bit of that. And maybe this is another good sign that there is a breaking point.
The company claims the 1,000% price hike drove it from VMware to open source rival. As I was saying, 1,000% price hike, and what Ryan was saying, you thought this was a different industry, didn't you? Nah, VMware has jacked up the prices everywhere. I've been screwed personally by the pricing insanity from VMware. Thanks, Broadcom. And it's been a huge mess and a lot of suffering and stress and just awfulness. And yeah, a lot of companies are suffering on this particular one is a cloud service provider that provides financial services. And they're looking at open source alternatives. And they've said that they have pretty much moved most of their stuff away from VMware at this point because that kind of a price increase is just untenable.
And interestingly enough, OpenNebula, which is what they've replaced it with, has much less overhead, and they've actually been able to free up a lot of their bare metal hardware for more services. Like, it actually works better as a product, and it's free. It's pretty amazing.
What is this source?
Listen, paywall alternatives. You know how it goes. We're being choked further and further.
What a title, though.
But this is, I don't think they were the only ones that cover the story. These are statistics that are out there that everybody can see.
Windows 11 loses customers amid the world's most popular OS gaining traction.
Reports Tweaktown.
What's the world's most popular OS? Windows 10. It wasn't a dramatic shift, but still. Again, how far do you have to push people before they take a drastic step?
We've completely replaced the Windows 11 start menu with an inert button. When you hit it, you just get a blank pop-up. Let's see if people notice. They noticed.
And another thing that people are noticing is that these games that come out are kind of all the same, and you don't get much investment for your $70 or $80 or $100 and some if you buy the crazy packages, because they're just going to die eventually, and the next one's going to come out. How much can they churn us?
Ubisoft shooter XDefiant is shutting down and sending refunds to players. The live service game, it's going to be the next Concord. It really was.
So much good gaming out there, indie games. Why would you buy that garbage? And it was almost, I was going to do the lead into this is like, but now we've lost it. But then right before we started today, we're back.
NBC News has the headline, Bitcoin price hits $100,000 a coin for the first time, up 40% since the election. That's sort of nuts. Yeah, it was at 60. Or 60? Yeah, it was at like 60 before the election. A little over 60. So
now not only is Gensler out, but the guy who replaced him is pretty friendly to the crypto community. So it seems like crypto is going to be a big part of our future.
It's not even just the crypto. I would just say like the new philosophy is unless Congress has specifically said this is how we want to regulate this, it's all kind of the Wild West. Whereas the old regime was, we're going to interpret this very, very broadly to say that we have the power to regulate this in strange and arbitrary way.
I don't really trust they're going to stop doing that, though.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of how the government has always worked.
Yeah.
Some people might be a little bit, there might be some irrational exuberance before the reality. And we have a bunch of end-of-year lists. These are always fun. I got to say, I'm pretty disappointed in the world for these selections.
Most popular Wikipedia pages of 2024.
Of course, you got to get through like 8 paragraphs to get. This is like a recipe site. Deaths were the most popular.
Oh, dark.
Almost double Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I'm
a lot of political ones.
Well, like the death of Backpage, like Kamala Harris was directly involved with that, and it's like that's perhaps come back to haunt her.
So I know what all of these things are except this. Do you guys know what this is?
No
clue. What
clue.
does it say?
Kaiki 2898 AD.
I have no idea.
Some sort of anime?
Is that weeb?
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah.
Tell us in the comments.
Summer Olympics, presidential election, ChatGPT, Taylor Swift.
Engagement challenge.
It's not very surprising. You think it burns Elon a little bit that he's only 17?
He's going to pay Wikipedia a lot of money to put him in number 1.
I'm better than Taylor Swift. And I put this in the social media section. After reading it, it wasn't quite the social media instance. This may have been better in security. But they do treat it kind of like social media, right? It's sort of like Robinhood was accused of gamifying finances, but also screwing you terribly while they're at it.
Google removed several active Android quote-unquote SpyLoan apps 8+ million downloads later. So these were applications that promised to loan you money, and you have to supply a lot of personal information and give them a lot of access to do that. And they would often actually loan you money, although less than you were looking for. But really, it was just stealing your info.
It's got kind of like a Candy Crush type of UI type of thing. Like that.
Thank you for your social security number.
Yeah.
Yay!
So yeah, the scam here is they would get all your data and you would agree to it, and it was very easy to do, but they would just eat you up with fees. So you would not get the amount of money that you had to pay back. And then that puts you in the loop of always being screwed.
Impossible to.
Yeah.
The other thing is they demanded through their apps, much like Apple, if you worked for them, they had to have access to your whole phone, to everything, including your contact list, which they would leverage to try to guilt you into paying them if you didn't pay them. They would contact your friends and family and make threats to you based on the information they knew about you. I don't think that's legal. And another of the year.
Brain rot named Oxford Word of the Year for 2024. Now,
A good one.
Was it Webster's last year? Or Webster's was in shitification, and Oxford says brain rot.
It was the
BBC.
Australian.
Oh, no, you're right.
It was the Australian dictionary. I can't remember what it was.
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't think that phrases should be word of the year. Right?
It is, I
It's
guess
not
it
a
is
word.
technically
What if it-
two
It's
words.
two words.
What if it was a compound word? So we'll just mentally substitute brain rot, all one word.
No, you got to get that space out of there. So if you don't know what the concept of brain rot is, it's basically doom scrolling, like just being so, sitting there, being engaged with everything.
With something that, doesn't enrich
Yeah.
you really.
You don't really learn anything from it. You're just feeding the endorphins. Makes sense.
My brain rot is like cake videos. People decorating cakes.
Cake videos.
Yeah.
Were you a big fan of the cake TV show craze of like the turn of the century?
Yeah, when I was younger, I used to watch that with my mom.
I watched a couple of those.
But now it's like there's versions of that where it's like short form content where it's just someone like decorating a cake really fast.
I don't know. I
That's
kind of
brain
like
rot to
seeing
me.
the process.
I mean, yeah, it's cool, but it's like I'm not gonna go out and start decorating a cake. I'm not really learning anything. I'm just mindlessly watching it.
Well, hopefully this young lady learned something about who to trust and how to not destroy the trust of your audience.
The article we're reading is from the Hindustan Times.
Look, it's a paywall alternative.
Tuah Girl's meme coin crashes from 500 million to 60 million in minutes. Fans in meltdown. She's accused of selling all the coins. She says she didn't sell anything. Probably she doesn't have any idea what a cryptocurrency is, and the people she's working with absolutely did sell a bunch of crap.
Isn't she working with like the Pauls or whatever, the brothers?
Yeah, so this is probably not fabulous.
I don't know if they're involved in this. They put her on their podcast.
Oh, okay.
So this was the Hawk coin, and they pointed out, people like looked at the prospectus and the blockchain and everything. They kept a massive amount of these coins, the developers did. So like a very small amount went out to the public. They pumped it up, and then they sold the insider coins. Allegedly.
CoffeeZilla has a breakdown of this, and it doesn't look good. Probably going to be some lawsuits.
Some people are claiming fraud in the new friendly crypto environment. Probably not going to happen, right?
I don't know. It depends. If she was involved, maybe. If she was not involved and she did not benefit.
Well, she was doing the live stream, right? Like she was talking about it, so I don't know. I mean, if you choose your investments based on a girl who's famous for something like that, do you deserve what you get?
Financial literacy, because could that be another sub theme this week? Is like, it's never not too soon to talk to your kids about financial literacy, or to make yourself. It's like, wait a minute, have the introspective to say, I might not be financially literate. I should go read and learn some things.
Or maybe you teach your kid that they need to visit store.level1text.com.
The most powerful force in the universe is compound interest.
Well, you know what? The most powerful force in the universe might be viral marketing, which is what this is, and this is totally a setup, and don't fall for it. But I don't know. I guess they're capitalizing on their newfound popularity.
Cheryl Hines, the co-star of Curb Your Enthusiasm, promotes products from her health and beauty line, while her husband, the new Secretary of Health and Human Services, showers in the background.
Honestly, I think RFK is just looking for any excuse to get that shirt off. Show it off. He's proud of it. And Meta, I believe, have they've had some meetings, and they said, hey, you know how we did everything that previous government regime told us to do? That is going to be a problem going forward. How can we pivot and do everything that the new one tells us to do?
Meta says it's mistakenly moderating too much. Too often, harmless content gets taken down or restricted, and too many people are penalized unfairly. Like a bunch of randos that just want to sit around and talk about links, not being able to say certain completely innocuous words.
It's true, but the timing is suspicious.
Is it, though? I mean, I don't expect certain overlords that may be present in the room with us to have this level of introspective.
Well, if their existence is threatened, they might. I think that's what he's thinking about there, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've made enemies. I should try to fix that.
Oh, I hadn't considered that, looking at it through the lens of like what Elon is propagandizing on the Twitter/X platform, to be like, oh, there's only free speech here. And it's like,
yeah. They picked two different horses for that race.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg's horse lost.
Yeah.
So now what do? You change horses midstream, which is dangerous. Now, this is just a feel-good story. Just a feel-good Facebook story.
Woman searching for birth parents found that her dad was a friend on Facebook. And then there's a helpful diagram of the family tree because I was having trouble following.
A dark story, though. This is Georgia, like not the state Georgia, but the country Georgia.
May have been some baby trafficking.
They would tell parents that their babies died.
Oh.
In the incubation. They didn't die.
They just were shipped off?
They were sold.
Oh.
So she figured this out, and she's a big activist for this kind of thing. She's like famous in this country. And turns out the father had no idea he was a father at all. And he was on her list of like, oh, I support this.
Wow.
Yeah. Seemed like a good dude. And TikTok is about to be a major controversy, I think. I don't know. Well, it could go one of two ways, all right? Do these people stick to their guns, or do they just be like, I think everybody wants us to be pro-TikTok, let's change our mind?
I want to play a metagame with this article, though. Everything we've said, especially in the first episode this week, I want you to, like, all the criticisms and all the bad things that they say about TikTok, I want you to mentally substitute telecommunications company backdoor. Trump's cabinet picks are deeply divided over banning TikTok, throwing the app's future into question. So, all of this, like, oh, it's Chinese ownership and the level of surveillance, and we don't know what they're doing, and they could change things algorithmically, and, like, what's going on in there. Every criticism they have for TikTok could apply to our actual telecommunications network, where we cannot control who is observing what.
But I can control it with TikTok. I don't use it.
Yeah.
I can't really not use the telecommunication network.
Yeah.
Now, Cat Tinbargo, or Tinbarge, I got to give props. They literally went through every single cabinet member and wrote a paragraph about what their stance is on it. And it is kind of, all over the place. So it's going to be interesting to see how those people deal with that. Some of them have been very hard line about it has to go.
If they're very hard line that it has to go, then they should be very hard line. Like, we need end-to-end encryption now. So, like, we need to turn the NSA, like the smartest people in the NSA, on, building tools to help companies verify that they've implemented the encryption correctly.
Admittedly, I didn't read them all, but like the half that I read, nobody mentioned that.
Weird.
Yeah.
Literally none of them mentioned that, like zero. But if you're that, if you care about it, you got to follow it through to its logical conclusion, and that's what you have to do. You have to give people the tools to protect themselves from end to end. And it doesn't matter that doesn't exist. See also the case where the dude's iPhone, like, they kept getting like 6-month extensions on the search warrants. That's just good old-fashioned police work. You don't need the one thing in lieu of the other thing. It's still possible to do good old-fashioned police work, even though I think they really, really skirted the line and maybe crossed it a little bit in that particular case. It's not as egregious as, we need a backdoor surveillance into literally everybody's stuff that is on all the time, and you don't know when your data has been collected, when they have actually surveilled you.
Well, let me immediately give you the first round that's going to go into the chamber to go against everything you just said.
From threats to gifts, how Haitian gang leaders added TikTok to their social media arsenal.
So it turns out, now when I see little TikTok clips, right, a lot of icons and stuff pop up on the screen, like hearts and different icons. Is that all donations?
There's people that are hitting that.
They're smashing that like button. And you
But
can
there's
see it live.
money in some of that, right?
Sometimes.
Because
Yeah.
I think there's a graphic down here.
It's like Twitch, yeah.
Like, yeah, there's coins somehow. So people are, Rose is one I see a lot. I see that's a cheap one. Is that 10 cents?
It's 10 whatever currency that
10
is. 10 mystery
talks.
coin, yeah.
People are donating to these Haitian gangs. But not only that, these guys are using it to specifically go against the journalists in Haiti. Apparently, journalists covering the corruption, maybe?
Yeah.
And the people seem to be kind of like, yeah, oh yeah, screw the journalists. You know? Here's a rose.
I mean, to be fair, if a gang leader controls your neighborhood, I'm probably maybe a little more scared of them than a journalist.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to follow them on TikTok.
What if you have to? What if they come to your door and they're like, follow me on TikTok? I don't think that happens, maybe.
I mean, is that much different than what Samsung is doing to my phone?
Yeah, you will play this game.
Yeah.
Well, it seems you've uninstalled Candy Crush. Let's just put that back for you.
And here's the story of the week. We didn't have a tech lead-in necessarily, so I was like, I don't know if we want to include that.
I wondered if it was going to nonsense, but
I mean, here it is, right? You
Yeah.
finally got the tech connection.
Moderators delete Reddit thread as doctors torch the dead United Healthcare CEO. So this was a Reddit thread where, you know, a level of decorum. The moderators were trying to maintain a level of decorum, but then there were a bunch of people that were doctors or people that were playing doctors sharing a lot of horror stories. And this is also the CEO that has bragged on, it's like, we used technology, AI, to reject 90% of claims, which led to our banner year, their earnings being up $23 billion. These are things that were said in the shareholder meetings. But as a result of that, there was definitely a lot of unnecessary human suffering and death.
I think the Daily Beast claims that they followed up with that top comment, and it's a real doctor. And they were willing to be like, yes, here I am, here's my practice.
Yeah.
I made that comment.
There are a lot of posts on Reddit with letters that they've written. Like, you know, it's like, hey, you guys denied the anti-nausea medicine for this kid that's going through cancer treatment. And, you know, why did you do that? Why am I having to take my time as a doctor to write you a letter to say, this is clearly a mistake. A kid is going to need anti-nausea medicine.
every news story I've seen about this, it's either had doctors commenting on, or even just people, the public, being like, I've had a claim denied, and it has made my life hell.
It has touched a nerve for sure.
Yeah.
And you can see here, this is the #1 trending article on their website,
Yeah.
the one that we're looking at here. Because this has touched everybody.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not you personally, but somebody in your family. Yeah. There's not a lot of degrees of separation between you and this monstrous machine that's like grinding us all up. And so people, I think the powers that be were a little surprised.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, well, hang on.
Well, look, if I'm outside and I'm doing something that is completely innocuous and safe, and through something that I'm doing outside, someone ends up dying, they will charge me with involuntary manslaughter. Maybe something worse, but you will get charged with involuntary manslaughter. Somebody implementing new software or procedures or whatever that result in a jump of 90% of claims, there's not an immediate government intervention to be like, this is a scam. You are ripping off your customers. There's only so much pressure that people will take before they reach a breaking point. And I think that, you know, if they ever catch the shooter, it is going to be like their kid or something was denied something and they died. And it's just like, all right.
And, we'll talk in the nonsense section. There was another egregious thing that happened in this space.
Yeah.
And they immediately were like, oh, no, we're just kidding about that. So that tells me this was effective.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of a boiling frog, but collectively people are not willing to take it anymore. And again, it's like if I as an individual do something completely innocent and it will result in involuntary manslaughter, but the leader of the company does something that results in at least
a lot of involuntary manslaughters.
Yeah, a lot. Then it's like, oh no, that's just business as usual. Something has clearly gone wrong.
But it's not a boiling frog. This immediately resulted in change.
Well, I don't know that the change will be lasting. I think that this will result in the facade of change, but underneath it, it's still sort of continuing to fester. The rot has not been arrested.
But not to encourage it, but just hypothetically, what if it kept happening?
Yeah, I mean, you sort of look at the Second Amendment in a different light when something like this happens, don't you?
What a Christmas.
I'm just saying, like, why would you ever go into a school?
You could get those feelings out another way.
Well, did you see? They took their website, like their staff page down with all the
Blue
executive
Cross.
board. Yeah,
Smart.
it's up on the Wayback Machine. Just throwing it out there, like, not for any reason.
It's like, what you mean we designed a Kafka-esque machine to amplify human misery and suffering, and there are consequences of that? That's basically, you got to rethink your life when there's that many people that are, I mean.
Anyway, we'll see you guys for nonsense on Friday. Bye.